Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. Is there anything you regret? The day I found out I had a brain tumor, Lu Shizhen came to propose to me. My mind was in complete chaos. I felt suspicious. Did he already know? Without even 30 seconds of hesitation, he stood up, put the ring box back in his pocket, and looked at me with cold, indifferent eyes. My parents are the ones asking. If you don't agree, then forget it, I felt relieved. So that was it. He had always been like this, playing games with me. Perhaps this time, too, he thought I was using his parents as an excuse to pressure him, which was why he staged this proposal just to make me feel miserable. I breathed in silently, let go of his hand, smiled at him, and said, "Well, if I agreed, would you still marry me?" He looked at me without a word. The answer couldn't have been clearer. The truth hurts. Right now you won't marry me, and later, even if you want to, you won't get the chance. I held back the desire burning at the bottom of my eyes, furious, and spoke. Lu Shizhen wasn't paying attention. He draped his coat over the sofa, curled his lips sarcastically. "You'll definitely live to see that day. You always think you know everything." I truly could not wait for that day. That evening, I sat leaning against the headboard. Lu Shizhen turned off his laptop, rubbed his eyes, then lifted the covers and climbed into bed. He was used to lying with his back to me, keeping a space between us wide enough for a pillow. The way people sleep doesn't lie. 8 years together and he still couldn't get used to sharing a bed with me. In front of him, I was always shameless. Even if he wasn't pleased, I would wait until he was fast asleep, then inch close and hold him tightly. Even our first time was because of my brazenness. I was 20 years old then. I vaguely recall that day. The rain poured down in torrents, drumming against the glass window pane, and the air was damp and heavy. I slowly took off my clothes and moved toward him, wrapping my arms around him. But he was silent and still. The waist of that young man beneath the white shirt turned out to be so slender and lean, not at all how I had imagined. His body temperature ran high, my whole body trembled with shame. I thought, if he rejected me, I might die of embarrassment. I tilted my face, forced a smile to meet his gaze, but tears blurred my vision. Back then, I was terrified of hearing the words from his mouth, that I was shameless, that I had no self-respect, or any other similar words of disgust. After all, I was just a girl with the courage to act but not the courage to bear the consequences. He looked at me coldly, as if in the next moment he would push me away. My hands trembled as I undid his buttons, my legs unsteady. "What are you doing?" he asked. I stammered, unable to form words. He leaned down and kissed me, kissing away even the bitterness of my tears. Too foolish to even know how to seduce someone, I could smell the faint scent of alcohol on him. His girlfriend had been unfaithful, so his mood was poor. I seized the opportunity, and from that day on, he had someone trailing behind him, someone he couldn't bring himself to discard. In the dark of night, I gazed up at the dim hanging light on the ceiling. Perhaps when a person is close to death, the heart grows calmer. All the youth I had wasted chasing after someone, all the heartache and longing, looking back now, none of it mattered as much as the fact that I could still see the morning sun rise tomorrow. The next day, I woke to the morning light streaming through the window, leaving me momentarily dazed. The doctor said the tumor might be pressing on my optic nerve, which was why everything I looked at took a moment to come into focus. Lu Shizhen was leaning against the headboard, reading an economics magazine. In the past on weekends, We used to linger in bed, and I would cling to him like an octopus, arms and legs always ending up on top of him. This was an unconscious reflex of my body. Lu Shizhen glanced down. "You're awake." I smiled at him. "Good morning." He swept his gaze over my shoulder, his expression unreadable. "You slept so soundly last night." I kept smiling. He suddenly frowned. "What were you saying in your sleep just now?" I touched my face. It was damp. Had I been crying? I was afraid he'd keep asking, so I sat up, looked at him seriously, and said, "I dreamed that I went to Norway and saw snow and the northern lights. I really, really want to go. Can we?" Lu Shizhen wasn't listening. He said he didn't have time. I opened my mouth, speaking slowly, still smiling. "All right then." Perhaps because my reaction was too calm, he turned his head and looked at me for a moment, then said indifferently, "We'll go in March next year." "I can't arrange the time this year," I nodded. Perhaps we'd still make it in time. Actually, I had dreamed of Lu Shizhen at 20. Back then, he was nothing like he is now. He used to be a very good person to me. I was born picky and difficult, didn't like this, didn't like that, afraid of being scolded by adults, yet he never showed the slightest disdain. He would finish the leftovers from my plate without a word. Unlike later, when he wouldn't even touch a cup I'd used, at school, when I was bullied, when they pulled my hair, scribbled on my exercise books, he was always the first to stand up and beat up those awful boys, then help me explain to the teachers and give me his own fresh notebook. As a child I was very introverted, growing up in a turbulent family. Without his protection, I might have been trampled terribly. Later, when my mother passed away, I cried until I thought I might die. I told him, "No one needs me anymore." He said it wouldn't be like that. I repeated it, and he repeated it back. I sat on the ground and cried the whole night. He endured his toothache and coaxed me through the entire night. The next day, his whole jaw was swollen. After that, I told him I liked him, took off my clothes and held him, and he said coldly and indifferently that I had no sense of shame. On Monday, going to work, Lu Shizhen forgot his backup phone at home. I hurried to bring it to his company. On the way, a call came in. I looked at the name, very familiar. He had been calling her by her full name for all these years. Zhao Yi. "Zhao Yi, my name is Wu Yu." Probably when my mother named me, she hoped I'd live a peaceful, carefree life. What a pity, I hadn't even reached 30 before a brain tumor came and failed her wishes. My family has a history of cancer. My mother, my aunt, and my grandmother all died of cancer when they were still very young. After arriving at the company, Zhao Yi blocked me and politely said the CEO was in a meeting, asking me to wait. Zhao Yi was Lu Shizhen's college friend, and after graduating, she became his secretary. All the big and small affairs of Lu Shizhen's life were handled by her. The time they spent together each day was even greater than the time I spent with him. What weighed on my heart was that back in university, he and Zhao Yi had once been together. Though the relationship didn't last long, it sat like a thorn in my heart. Our mutual friends all felt that I was capricious around him, not allowing any other woman near him, yet I never dared bring up asking him to let Zhao Yi go. I still remember clearly how shattered Lu Shizhen was when he and Zhao Yi broke up. He looked at me with eyes colder than I'd ever seen. "Did you really just use my parents to pressure me?" His voice faltered. I even thought I saw tears in his eyes. He liked her that much, so why did he leave her? That time, I was stunned for a long while. Lu Shizhen was visibly upset. I'd never seen him care that deeply about someone. Later, perhaps out of spite, I always waited until Lu Shizhen came out of meetings to deliberately make a show of affection in front of Zhao Yi. But this time, I handed his phone to Zhao Yi and asked her to give it to him after the meeting. I nodded to her and turned to leave. The look on Zhao Yi's face was faintly surprised. After Lu Shizhen's parents retired, they moved back to their old family home. Every month, I would visit them. Lu Shizhen refused to go. "Dad and Mom like you better than me anyway," he said, still reading his contract, answering offhandedly, "My mother was never married." I didn't know who my father was. Lu Shizhen's mother was my mother's best friend. After my mother passed, the two of them took me in and raised me. I was deeply grateful to them and always tried to appear well-behaved, even ingratiating. Winning the favor of his mother, his father, and Lu Shizhen himself, the relationship between Lu Shizhen and his father wasn't great, largely because of me. Back then, his parents didn't approve of him being with Zhao Yi because they'd discovered she was being kept by another man at the time. Photographic evidence was laid out in front of Lu Shizhen, but he didn't care at all. He said Zhao Yi had her reasons for suffering. His mother was furious, iron that refused to be forged into steel, and turned wholly toward me. Rather than letting our son find some unknown woman outside. It's better to have Wu Yu. At least she's a clean, pure girl, Lu Shizhen laughed coldly. If that's what you want, you go marry her. Stepping out of that stream of memory, I coaxed him, let's go together, the two elders will be even happier. Lu Shizhen's tone didn't change, as long as they're happy. I had no choice but to compromise. I looked at him for a moment, then picked up my bag and stood. There's food in the kitchen. Remember to eat. He didn't look up. Take care on the way. The drive back to the old house took 3 hours. With a few sweet words I had both elders laughing and unable to stop. I helped his mother till the soil, add fertilizer, and sow seeds, then built a trellis for the climbing beans. Covered in sweat, I lay sprawled out on the stone table in the garden and fell asleep without realizing it. When I woke it was already late afternoon, a coat from his father draped over me, my arms bitten in several places by mosquitoes. The evening light was like fire, carrying its warmth. After dinner, as I was getting ready to leave, his mother reminded me to take good care of Lu Shizhen. I said I would. His father said, you must take good care of yourself, too. Your color is a little pale. Sometimes tears come only because of such simple words of care. I held back my emotions and smiled. From now on I won't stay up late anymore. I had been getting headaches more and more often. Luchi was my primary attending physician. He advised me to be hospitalized for end-stage treatment. The headaches would grow increasingly frequent, and some patients also experienced seizures. I shook my head. By the time it comes to that, I'll probably have already ended my own life. You know I can't bear pain. He frowned at me, and finally let out a long sigh. He didn't dare let me drive, so he took me home. On the way back, Luchi looked at me through the rearview mirror. He still doesn't know, does he? Meaning Lu Shizhen. Of course not, I said. I haven't decided how to tell him yet. He was quiet for a moment. I can't imagine how he'd react. I laughed out loud. He'd probably be overjoyed, all the remaining years of his life, finally free. Perhaps the thing Lu Shizhen regretted most was that in our second year of university, he had gotten involved with me. If he hadn't, he wouldn't have been pressured by me and his parents into taking responsibility for me. Luchi glanced at me and shook his head. Back then, I deceived him. I told him you were drunk and agreed to be with him, and he happened to be holding the outfit you wore the night before, so he assumed something had happened between you two. He was furious. I said he was angry because his parents had pressured him to break up with Xiao Yi. Luchi answered with one sentence, "Whatever you two say." As darkness fell, when we passed the sports court, I saw a group of vibrant young people playing basketball, drenched in sweat. For a moment, I stopped cold. "I don't want to go home yet," I told Luchi. "You know how to play basketball, right?" "I want to watch." Luchi hesitated slightly. He knew how to play ping pong, and as for basketball, it had been years. Under my persistent begging, Luchi finally rolled up his sleeves and stepped onto the court. With his long arms and long legs, aside from a bit of initial adjustment, he was unstoppable. After a beautiful three-point shot, I couldn't hold back my cheers. Luchi wiped the sweat from his face, triumphant, and turned to look at me. Not far away, I spotted a familiar silhouette. He was wearing dress pants and a button-up shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, face impassive, watching the basketball court. I knew he had a scar on his arm, a scar from saving me in a car accident. The wound was 20 centimeters long. He'd broken a bone and needed a pin. After that, the function of his fingers was impaired due to nerve damage. And he could no longer play his beloved basketball or football. He could no longer even hold a glass steady with that arm. That arm had once shielded me from a lethal rock flying through the windshield. Because of that, I felt immensely guilty. The game ended. Luchi high-fived his teammates, soaked in sweat, and ran toward me. I handed him his jacket. "Go on, you won, and you don't even get a sip of water. The only bottle here is mine." He reached out and offered it to me. Lu Shizhen had already left at some point. I panicked and said, "Let me go buy you some water." When I got home, Lu Shizhen had already bathed and was lying in bed in his pajamas. I went to shower, then climbed into bed. He turned off the light. We didn't say a word all night. The next day, our usual weekend date, there was suddenly an extra person. The company was preparing a project for an entertainment complex, and he brought Xiao Yi along to survey and choose a location. Lu Shizhen explained calmly. I didn't say anything. We all walked together for a while. Xiao Yi seemed to have a cold. She kept coughing. Lu Shizhen frowned. "You're sick, why didn't you say so?" Xiao Yi smiled. "I've had a cold for a few days. I thought taking medicine would help. Who knew the wind outside would make it worse?" Lu Shizhen took off his coat and handed it to her. Xiao Yi accepted it, saying, "Thank you for your concern." During the day the wind was strong, showing no sign of stopping. When it blew into Lu Shizhen's face, he found a cafe. It was packed at noon and the only table left was near the door. He guided Xiao Yi to sit in the sheltered corner, away from the draft. Having been exposed to the cold wind, I started getting a headache again. My whole body broke into a cold sweat, my legs went weak. I couldn't stand. I gripped Lu Shizhen's elbow. He leaned down slightly and glanced at me. "You're sick too." His tone was impossible to read, somewhere between concern and mockery. I made the effort to stand upright and let go of his elbow. I didn't eat breakfast, so my blood sugar dropped a bit. He said nothing. I said, "I'll go to the restroom." I turned away, breathed in deeply. My head hurt so much I couldn't think. Something hot slid out of my nostril. I bumped into several customers in front of me. They looked at me in surprise. My nose was bleeding. I quickly covered it with my hand, bent my head, and rushed into the restroom. I called Lachi to ask how to handle it. The phone rang and rang with no answer. A wave of nausea rose in me. I bent over the toilet and retched violently. Stomach acid burned up my throat. When I finished, the headache was strangely less severe. I rested against the wall for a moment, then splashed cold water on my face and slipped out through the cafe's side door. When I returned, Zhao Yi was coughing violently. Lu Shizhen was gently patting her back. My eyes suddenly stung, perhaps from jealousy. I walked over and took out a box of cold and lung medicine, offering it to her. I went to the pharmacy and they said this would help with a cough. Zhao Yi was a little surprised as she took it. "Thank you, Ms. Wu." Lu Shizhen's gaze, from start to finish, was only on Zhao Yi. He hadn't spared me a single glance, even though my color wasn't good at all. Unexpectedly, it was Zhao Yi who first noticed something was off with me. Only then did Lu Shizhen's gaze shift toward me, carrying a hint of scrutiny. I smiled. My stomach's a bit unsettled. He said lightly, "Eat something once you're done, then we'll head back early." I nodded. In the car, Lachi called back and apologized. His supervisor had called him in, so he hadn't been able to hold his phone. "Are you okay? Did something happen?" I glanced at Lu Shizhen driving, and lowered my voice. My stomach was a bit off, so I wanted to ask what medicine to take. "I'm fine now." Lachi was quiet for a second. Then said, "Wait till you get home and we'll talk." I couldn't help but curl the corners of my lips. He was always so perceptive. Lu Shizhen turned his head toward Zhao Yi. "Let me take you to the hospital for an 4 drip." Zhao Yi hesitated, then agreed. He then looked in the rearview mirror and told me, "Do you need to go to the hospital for a checkup?" I shook my head. "Drop me off. I'll take a cab." He made no reaction. "As you like." I turned to look at the passing scenery through the car window. Sometimes I couldn't help wondering, if Lu Shizhen knew I was going to die soon, would he regret how he had treated me? Then I answered my own question. What did it have to do with him? I was the one who hid it from him. A few minutes later, Lu Shizhen let me out at the top of the street. Zhao Yi gave me an apologetic look. The car drove away quickly. I stood there for a moment, then raised my hand and called a cab. I didn't go home. I went to a convenience store, bought a can of beer, and went to stand by the riverside, drinking in the wind. I didn't actually feel like torturing myself, so I only drank half the can and held the rest in my hand. Afraid of the cold, I'd also bought a scarf from a stall by the road. Lachi had once asked me why I didn't tell family that I was ill. Before my mother passed, I had been the one caring for her. Before she died, she was wan and frail, veins so withered that even needles couldn't find them. That image was carved deep into my mind. Instead of letting them stand by me through futile treatments, watching me grow weaker and more haggard day by day, I would rather they remembered me looking still a bit healthy and well. Then afterward, Luchi would tell them I had left peacefully. With modern medicine so advanced, I wouldn't be in too much pain. I sat there alone for a long time, knees to my chest, dozing for a bit. Without realizing it, the sky had grown dark. I opened my phone, many missed calls. I randomly pressed one. Lu Shizhen's voice came through, furious, as if ready to devour me whole. I've called you so many times. Why won't you pick up? I froze for a moment, then came back to my senses. A feeling washed over me, as if I had missed something. What is it? Something happened? He was silent, exhaling sharply, as if forcing down his emotions. Where are you? I looked around. The top end of Lujiang Road. He said, stay there. I'm coming to pick you up. Lu Shizhen arrived faster than I expected. He parked the car, walked quickly over to me, and stood in front of me, examining me rapidly. Only when he saw I was unharmed did he calm down. What did you come here to do? He asked. I was about to answer when I sneezed. His expression darkened. He took off his coat and draped it over me. In truth, I didn't need it. After all, this was the coat that had been on Zhao Yi's shoulders. I could even smell Zhao Yi's perfume. I walked behind him and quietly shrugged the coat off. Lu Shizhen opened the car door, then suddenly turned to look at me, frowning. What now? I spoke softly. Zhao Yi wore it. She wore it, so I don't want it. Petulant, yes, but so what? I was almost dead anyway. Did I still have to be reasonable? Who said so? He took the coat back and put it on me again, unruffling his brow. She wore it, so you have to wear it too. Are you afraid you're not already sick enough? He started the car, and I said it was hot. He replied, serves you right. After the car accident, Lu Shizhen drove very carefully. A road of more than 5 kilometers took him over 10 minutes. When we got inside the door, he suddenly pulled my hand and leaned down to smell the beer on me. How much did you drink? 1 can. He clearly didn't believe me. He raised his hand and pressed it to my forehead to check my temperature. You've got a fever, perhaps from the sneeze. Something trickled down inside my nose again. Lu Shizhen frowned. What's wrong with you? I shook my head and covered my nose with my hand. Perhaps a rush of blood, like water from a faucet that hadn't been turned off tightly. Lu Shizhen's eyes suddenly changed. He tilted my head back and told me to pinch my nose tightly, then went to the bedroom to find cotton balls and inserted them into my nostrils. He stared at me, his movements meticulous and careful. The nosebleed gradually stopped. My face and neck were both stained with blood. Lu Shizhen took a warm towel and wiped me clean. When he got to my collarbone, his hand paused slightly. I pulled his sleeve. That spot, I got a drop of blood on you. It doesn't matter. He stared at my face again, frowning. You sneeze once and you get a nosebleed? Are you made of porcelain? I nodded and cheerfully admitted, I'm delicate. He studied me and asked, have you lost weight? He still remembered my weight. Lu Shizhen went to the kitchen and cooked a bowl of fragrant noodle soup, then watched me finish the whole bowl. It had been so long since I'd felt this hungry. My stomach was full to the brim. He brought warm slippers to the bedside, bent down, and helped me change into them. As he lowered his head, his hair fell down over his eyes, his expression gentle. Patient. In that moment, I felt as if I had returned to the past. Back then, I was very picky about food and slightly malnourished, so he decided to stop indulging me and set out to correct my palate. Actually, there were so many things I wanted to ask him. His entrance exam scores were excellent, clearly good enough for one of the top 5 national universities. Why did he choose to study at our mediocre 985 tier school? At the time he said it was to get away from his parents and avoid being bothered. Was that truly what he meant? Or was he worried about me going far away alone, afraid I'd be bullied, but I never brought myself to ask. Lu Shizhen answered a phone call. He stood up and stepped aside. His tone and manner were very gentle. Found her. Some things are ordained by heaven. If he hadn't come to study at our school, he wouldn't have met Xiao Yi. Though she later buckled under the pressure and left for another man, so many years had passed and the two of them were still spiritually in tune. Lu Shizhen, I don't have much time left. Getting through the end stage with you, and then you'll be free. 1 more month and it will be my birthday. These past few days I've noticed my body weakening visibly. The amount of painkillers I'm using keeps increasing, yet I'm still in more and more pain. Luchi also told me my situation wasn't looking good. I trailed behind Lu Shizhen, repeating myself into his ear. Take me to see the Northern Lights, can you? Didn't we already say next year? I can't wait anymore. Do you know what the Northern Lights mean? They represent happiness. Whoever sees them will have a lifetime of happiness. Lu Shizhen was pestered enough to give in. Really? Our relationship improved quite a bit. The most obvious sign was that Lu Shizhen became more vigorous. Though before, the frequency between us hadn't been low, lately he was clearly putting in more effort. I'll leave that aside. I also treasured this time very much. If it weren't for that unclear, ambiguous entanglement between a man and a woman, he was at least still a brother worth his title. Life is always full of things that go contrary to one's wishes. Having endured for so long, the day of my birthday finally arrived. That day I went out to buy a few things for the overseas trip. But on the way, a severe headache struck again. A bicycle hit me. I ended up huddled on the ground, face pale, making the cyclist terrified. He wanted to call an ambulance for me, but I stopped him and called Luchi instead. It happened to be Luchi's day off. He arrived quickly, lifted me, still writhing on the ground, placed me in the car, and gave me a sedative. I gradually came around, and was still in the mood to joke. When I die, I'll definitely leave you half my assets. You're more devoted than a boyfriend. He was in the middle of something but turned and glared at me. Who wants your inheritance? So what do you want? I don't have anything good to give you. I thought for a moment and said, cook me a meal. Honestly, back in the day I followed you precisely because you could cook. Oh, so I'd cooked for Lu Shizhen all those years and he still didn't love me. We went to the supermarket. In order to repay the debt of gratitude, I was ready to showcase all my culinary skills. Luchi, who had initially planned to lean in the kitchen doorway and watch, ended up being called in to help. While we were cooking, Lu Shizhen called me. What happened? Someone at the office said you were hit by a vehicle today. I was stunned. I hadn't expected him to know. It was an accident. I'm fine. He breathed in deeply. Where are you now? Luchi had just finished dealing with the shrimp. He handed them to me, heads off. Luchi had heard him, and was silent. I could only say, Luchi helped me out. I'm at his place now, cooking for him. Lu Shizhen heard his voice and went quiet. So you're fine then? He said this in a low tone, then hung up. La Qi and I exchanged a glance. He raised both hands to show his innocence. That evening, Lu Shizhen came home very late. I happily ran up to him and handed him a cup of hot milk, then asked, "Which day do we leave for Norway? I need to book tickets." Lu Shizhen looked up at me. He didn't take the cup of milk, didn't say a word. In that silence, I seemed to sense what was coming, and indeed, he lowered his eyes. Sorry. The project in the UK is difficult to resolve. It's been handed to our team. I have to take part from start to finish. It'll take about half a year. I unconsciously gripped the handle of the cup. If it were the past, I could certainly have understood. Work comes first, career matters. I knew that. I was capricious, but when it came to truly important things, I'd never troubled him. Can you push back the schedule a little? Going to Norway is just for a few days. I spoke in a slightly lost way, my voice even carrying a trace of pleading. Perhaps he hadn't expected me to insist this much. He looked at me once. We'll go next year. Then you can stay as long as you want. A long time later, I said, all right. But there wouldn't be another chance. Perhaps he still felt a little guilty. In bed, I had my back to him. Lu Shizhen reached from behind and held me, gently kissing my neck and shoulders. I didn't react. He wasn't angry. He kissed each of my fingers, one by one, at first gentle, then with force. As if making up for all the months of separation, the next morning, he packed a few things. Zhao Yi drove up to the front door. Lu Shizhen said goodbye to me. He would make time to come back. Then he prepared to leave. I said, "Don't you want a hug?" He hesitated slightly, leaning toward me. From inside the car, Zhao Yi leaned out. Time to go. Lu Shizhen's movement stopped. Of course, in front of others, he had never been affectionate with me. He looked at me. Wait for me to come back. Then he turned and walked toward Zhao Yi. I counted out of habit. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. For steps, he didn't turn back. In the past, I always hoped he would turn and look at me just once. At least it would show he was reluctant to leave. But sadly, this time was no exception. I slept a long sleep. When I woke it was already early the next morning. The city was cold and quiet. Lu Shizhen had sent me a message saying he'd arrived in the UK safely. I didn't reply. I couldn't sleep anymore. I sat on the bed, hugging my knees. Actually, perhaps this was fine. I never wanted him to find out about my illness. Now that he'd gone abroad, he wouldn't know. Drifting into memory, I recalled so many things from childhood. My health wasn't good. I was prone to allergies, and had rhinitis, unable to breathe in dust. So every time it was my turn to be on cleaning duty, he would come to wipe the blackboard for me. In winter when I fell on the snow, he put his gloves on my hands and carried me home. When I had a flu and a sore throat and couldn't eat, and the adults were away, he cooked porridge, blew on it spoonful by spoonful, and fed me. And then there was the car accident. If it hadn't been for him shielding me, I would have died. Every time he treated me badly, I would take all the good things he had done for me to cancel it out, like that, day by day, year by year. Each time something was cancelled out, another thing piled up. I still liked him very much, because of these memories. There would have to be very many more unkind things before the good was fully cancelled out. But he treated me too well, there was no cancelling it all out. Barefoot, I stepped into Lu Shizhen's study. He rarely let me in here. In a dusty corner of the bookshelf, I found a sketch pad. Right, he used to love drawing. I flipped through a few sketches and found a line written in childish handwriting. Wu Yu has no mother and is very pitiful. But I don't like her. I paused, then continued to the next page. After that little girl came to live with us, Mom's eyes are only for her. When riding in the car, because she gets carsick, she always gets to sit in Mom's lap. The things I like to eat she doesn't like, so Mom and Dad only cook what she likes. When I was sick, no one even noticed, my heart ached. So after I arrived, that's how badly they neglected him. Back then, he was just a boy, having a stranger snatch away his parents' love. What reason did he have to be magnanimous? The diary entries grew longer as time went on. She found a kitten caught in the rain, couldn't keep it alive, and cried in heaves. I held her and she held me back, snot and tears all over me. Gross. Mom forgot my birthday, but she didn't. She ran and told the whole class so the teachers and everyone would sing to me. I kept my head down the whole time. Way too embarrassing. I won't let her call me big brother. She won't listen. I'm not her big brother. If I'm her big brother, doesn't that mean I have to let her have everything? She won't, either. That's what Mom and Dad taught her. The sketch pad was mostly drawings. Only for a few important things did he write. Today I heard her sitting at the grave of the kitten, saying she was only being nice to me because she was afraid the two elders would kick her out. At that moment, it seems I was quite sad, my eyes stung. As a child, I truly hoped we, the two elders, him and me, were all one family. The love I felt for Lu Shizhen had long since become a complex obsession. I desperately wanted a home. But that didn't mean my love for him was insincere. After growing up, Lu Shizhen rarely kept a diary. Flipping to the last page, there was only one line. Seems like she thought I was drunk and took advantage of her. What idiot told her a drunk man can't perform? The old paper had stuck together with age. I separated it, a second line on the back. I see a lot of similarities between us. Even the stains on our souls are the same. Perhaps I could let her be my girlfriend. I went still. So in the end, he felt Zhao Yi was his true kindred spirit? It turned out the memories of our youth were nothing alike. It turned out I had hindered him so much. I picked up a pen and wrote a few words on the back of that drawing. I'm sorry. Then the headache came again. During an attack, pain seized my entire body. Perhaps the painkillers were no longer working. I looked at myself in the mirror. Honestly, not in great shape. The chubby cheeks were gone. Lu Shizhen doesn't like girls, does he? So maybe he'd actually like me as I am now. Whatever I am to him, it doesn't matter anymore. In the pain and delirium, I couldn't help but want to call Lu Shizhen. My finger scrolled to his number. In the end, I didn't press it. I'm a very selfish person, with many dark thoughts. I know clearly that Lu Shizhen doesn't like me, yet I kept him by my side, using the word responsibility to bind him. This time, let it end. On the day of my birthday, Lu Shizhen called many times. I watched the screen light up and go dark. In the end, I still picked up. Why did you take so long? His voice came through with a bit of static. I was asleep, I answered softly. Have you had birthday cake? He asked. I nodded and said I had. Did Mom and Dad celebrate with you? I didn't dare let the two elders see me the way I was now, so I lied and said I'd gone traveling, wanted to see the world, and would be back in a long time. He was quiet, then asked, with Lachi? He truly was my closest friend I'd kept in contact with all these years. Yes. It's a pity he ordered the wrong cake, 1 year too old. Says since I was born near the end of the year, 1 more year wouldn't matter. How annoying. Though in reality I hadn't seen him in a long time. Lu Shizhen hummed. My stomach and heart have been aching lately, hurting so much I keep doubling over. I wanted to act spoiled but my throat was a little hoarse, so it wasn't very effective. Come back earlier, will you? I want to see you. Have you heard the story of the boy who cried wolf? Before, when Lu Shizhen and Zhao Yi were about to go on a business trip, I also wanted to go. But Lu Shizhen wouldn't agree. So I threatened to end my own life, sending a message saying if he didn't take me, I wouldn't be alive anymore. I said it in anger, I didn't mean it. But he believed it. He rushed over, and I was sitting on the floor, hugging my knees, holding an unopened box cutter to my wrist. At the sight of me in a panic, his face went cold. From then on, whenever I said something that made him uncomfortable, he would be very impatient. The more I wanted him to come back, the less he would return. I understood this clearly, and so the other end of the line delivered a cool, dismissive sentence, and then he hung up. Well, making him like me was not easy. I'd spent 20 years on it and still hadn't succeeded. But making him hate me, that I knew all too well how to do. Like this, when I was gone, perhaps he would grieve a little less. Should he grieve for me at all? 1 month later, I was at a bar. At the table next to mine sat several of Lu Shizhen's friends, both men and women. I was wearing a cap with its brim pulled low over my face, dressed in black, sitting in a corner, so they didn't recognize me. I heard them mention my name. It turned out Lu Shizhen wanted to break up with me. He said they had dragged things out long enough and both he and I were exhausted, both sick of it. I thought for a while, then started packing my things at home, clothes, shoes, mugs, bed linens, and even some jewelry. Everything that belonged to me, big and small, I gathered it all. This way, when his new girlfriend came to stay, they wouldn't argue over things I'd left behind. Among the items were the wedding photos we'd taken together, photos from a family trip abroad. The two elders had a copy too. I used to treasure them, hanging them in the most prominent spot in the house. But now, they couldn't be resold either, so I'd have to throw them away. Before leaving, I turned to take one last look at the house. Good, not a trace of me remained. Ah, not quite. I left a brown teddy bear on the living room sofa. I'd bought it because it looked like Lu Shizhen. I stuck a note on it, for Zhao Yi. Lu Shizhen likes Zhao Yi so much. Here you go. Once, the three of us had been in the same car. I was driving. Lu Shizhen in the passenger seat, Zhao Yi in the back. When a cargo truck lost control and crashed into us, Lu Shizhen shielded me from the incoming rock, but the car's crumpled frame trapped me. Both my legs were pinned under the seat, and shattered glass cut into my thigh. Blood poured out. Perhaps from the body's self-protection mechanism. At that moment I felt dazed. I couldn't even feel the pain. From behind came Zhao Yi's pained moaning. Lu Shizhen, despite his broken arm, got out of the car, opened her door, and carried her out. Then he used what strength remained to tend to me. When did Lu Shizhen return to the country? Why didn't anyone tell me? At the entrance of the residential complex, I saw him step out of a taxi. My face went pale, at a loss for what to do. My only thought was, he must not see me like this. Perhaps sensing my gaze, he turned and looked in my direction. I spun around and walked away quickly, flustered. I'd rented a small room nearby. When I got home, I finally exhaled. Lu Shizhen called. He'd probably returned home and found I was gone. I was about to decline, then pressed accept. Hello. His cold voice came through. Where are you? I didn't answer. He asked again, his voice carrying pressure. Where are you? My mind was a mess. I made up an excuse on the spot. I went traveling. He let out a cold laugh. Traveling, and you took all your belongings? I thought the house had been robbed. What do you mean by this? I want to move out. He drew a breath, and when he spoke again, his voice was tight with displeasure. I'm asking you once more, where are you? I thought and thought, gripping the phone. Let's break up. Silence on the other end. I hung up. 2 evenings later, I sneaked back to the villa. The teddy bear I'd left was thrown into the garden, soaked from the rain, bedraggled and dirty. Knowing his personality, after being treated like that by me, he definitely couldn't stand it. I touched the bear's ear. Took it with me. With great effort, half laughing and half struggling, I finally managed to stuff it into the back seat of a cab. I still had a few thoughts, hoping that he and Zhao Yi would occasionally think of me later. I also hoped he wouldn't relegate me entirely to the past. You tell me, if I died and Lu Shizhen could no longer eat the food I cooked, could no longer hear my voice, could no longer have me wandering to and fro bothering him every day, would he miss me? I'd lost a lot of weight. The most unbearable state that Luchi had described seemed to be approaching. In this country, euthanasia isn't legal. I was quite troubled by this. And I didn't want to go all the way to Switzerland, somewhere far away. In my body's current condition, I couldn't endure such a long journey. Luchi said if I wanted to go, he could take me. As he said those words, his eyes were full of reluctance. I tilted my head and looked at him. Wasn't that too cruel to him, seeing me off in person? He would surely have nightmares afterward. After much deliberation, I decided to go jump into the sea. Lu Shizhen only dislikes the sea. He likes small winding streams, likes the tranquil surface of a lake, and precisely dislikes the vast, mysterious ocean. He is such a bland person. That's fine too. I'd die in a place he dislikes, and he'd feel lighter for it. That way when he thinks of me, he won't come to hate the landscape as well. Although Luchi didn't need it, I still left half my assets to him. Whether as a friend or a doctor, he had been far too dedicated, and I'd had no way to repay him. It was embarrassing to mention. The money I had wasn't much. I'd initially wanted to record a video to send to the 2 elders, but seeing my current state, I gave up. I could only write a letter of gratitude. Since childhood, I had wanted to call them Mom and Dad. I always secretly called them that in my heart. I hoped they wouldn't blame me. The sea wind howled desolately past my ears. I opened my phone's social media feed and saw a photo that Liu Shizhen had posted. He and Zhao Yi were watching fireworks together. I remembered Zhao Yi once saying what she remembered most was the fireworks from her teenage years, carrying the most beautiful, innocent wishes. One by one, fireworks bloomed in the dark sky, brilliant and beautiful as starlight, glittering point by point, then falling like a meteor shower, delicate and fading, very much like the most vibrant moment of a life. I set my phone on a rock, stretched up, and jumped into the sea. Side story, LHE, when I told Liu Shizhen that Wu Yu had passed away, he refused to believe it. Don't play these games, Liu Shizhen. I wasn't joking. I handed him Wu Yu's will. This is the letter she wrote for your parents. Please deliver it to them. He didn't take it. He didn't even lower his head to look at it. What is she pulling this time? I let out a cold laugh and turned to leave. 7 days after Wu Yu passed, Liu Shizhen returned from abroad. His parents had lost contact with Wu Yu and filed a missing persons report. Police contacted me through leads. I told them everything, and also received an email from Wu Yu, set to be sent on a timer. She told me not to miss her too much. Then she gave me the passcode to the apartment she'd rented, asking me to help her send the will to the 2 elders. She said she'd written a very detailed cookbook for me. Whenever I wanted to eat something she'd made, I could learn to make it myself. The refrigerator was packed with pickled cabbage and marinated peppers she'd made, enough for me to eat for a long time. She left on an ordinary day, without telling anyone, including me. I studied medicine, but it was because the school cafeteria had a very good fried egg with bean sprouts, cheap and delicious, that I came every day to buy a serving and sit alone. I was a picky eater, she gradually noticed and always glanced over in my direction. Later, her bicycle broke down. I happened to be passing and helped her fix it. That's how we met. She probably thought my family was very poor. So poor I only ate 1 meal a day, only 1 serving. So every time, she'd deliberately order 2 servings of meat, then pretend she couldn't finish it and ask me to help her eat the rest. I was happy to play along with her performance for a long time. Until one day she started bringing a big bag every time we met, fruit, snacks, daily necessities. She said the girls in her dorm were on a diet and asked me to eat it for them. I couldn't bear it any longer. I deliberately dressed head to toe in brands and wore a Prada bag to meet her. She looked at me in surprise, then studied me earnestly, pointed at my bag, and said, "Isn't this a something?" Her expression shifted. She probably thought it was fake but was afraid of hurting my pride, so she held back and complimented me, "Looks quite nice." Inside, I really wanted to laugh. She was always like this. Even after she died, she still wanted to give me half her assets. I stared at the string of numbers in that bank card and couldn't hold back a laugh. I laughed and laughed, then sat frozen on the ground, covering my face, trying to hold back the stream of water rushing from the corners of my eyes. Liu Shizhen must have gone to the morgue to identify her. When he came out, his fists were clenched, his face stricken. "I am a doctor. I know what a body looks like after being submerged in water." Perhaps it would stay with him for the rest of his life. The police handed him the phone found on the rock. The battery had a little charge left. The phone's password was easy to guess. The date the kitten she'd raised as a child had died. Like so many of her passwords, which were her mother's birthday. This girl's love ran so deep, perhaps because her mother passed early. She had told me we must cherish the members of our family. Even that little kitten was a family member. She also said I was family too. You foolish girl, the screen lit up, and what it showed was a post from Lu Shizhen. He and Zhao Yi were in the UK watching fireworks. The photograph was full of romance and beauty. The last thing she had looked at before she died was this. What was she thinking in that moment? Lu Shizhen's face was ashen. A few days later, he came to find me suddenly. He asked when she had found out she was sick. I said, the day you proposed to her. Lu Shizhen's eyelids trembled. The day of the proposal, exactly, I said, leaning back in my chair, watching him. But then you said, what was it? That you never actually wanted to marry her, that it was only because your parents asked. He seemed to understand something. His eyes reddened. No wonder. No wonder she was so sad then. He understood now. His recent mental state hadn't been good. He had visibly grown gaunt. His voice pleading, as if desperately wanting to hear a negative answer, he asked me, was she in pain during her last days? I kept my smile. Mr. Lu, she had brain cancer. Late-stage brain cancer causes severe headaches, dizziness, and comes with nausea and vomiting. Sometimes she couldn't see things clearly. Living alone, she often fell. After the cancer cells metastasized, she couldn't even describe exactly where she hurt, because her whole body was in pain. She couldn't bear it anymore, that's why she chose to end her life. She asked me to tell everyone that she felt no pain when she left. I looked at him sharply. But I couldn't bring myself to keep him in the dark. Lu Shizhen, what were you doing at the time? Watching fireworks with Zhao Yi? Yes, there was one time, you, Zhao Yi, and her all went out together. At the cafe, her headache hit and she had a nosebleed in front of everyone, so she hid in the restroom. When she'd recovered a little, she came back out. I told him, at that time, she called me, but I couldn't pick up. Lu Shizhen suddenly looked up at me. Eyes full of disbelief, I smiled. But compared to her, you were clearly more concerned about Zhao Yi's cold. Lu Shizhen's face went pale gray and he couldn't come back to himself for a long time. A nurse knocked. Dr. Law, a patient's family member is looking for you. I walked past him and headed outside. Lu Shizhen's parents were standing outside the door. His mother's eyes were red from crying. She had to lean on his father just to stand. You were her treating doctor, and her friend. Can you tell me, did Wu Yu really have cancer? His mother reached her hand toward me, voice trembling. Why didn't she tell us? Those last days, no one by her side, no one to care for her, fighting it all alone. She must have been so lonely. His mother's tears welled up again. I said the words I had prepared, please don't be too heartbroken. With today's modern medicine, Wu Yu didn't suffer much. She just didn't want to spend her final days dependent on medicine and machines. That's why she chose to jump into the sea. She really loved the sea. For her, it was a kind of release. She didn't want to see you grieve for her, which is why she didn't tell anyone. His father was stunned, eyes reddening. Is that so? I nodded. She said she wanted to leave in your memory looking beautiful and healthy. His mother murmured, that child still remembered my high blood pressure, reminded me to take medicine regularly, go for checkups, and told your father to supervise me and make sure I didn't drink. Even on the day she chose to leave, Wu Yu still called to check on me. She slumped down into the hallway chair, covering her face and weeping. I didn't notice anything wrong with that child. Lu Shizhen stood to one side. He knew the real situation, which was why his pain was boundless. Like mine. Side story. Lu Shizhen. In the first month after Wu Yu passed, I often forgot the truth. Waking up in the mornings on the familiar bed, I would instinctively turn toward the other pillow, wanting to throw off her leg that had been draped over me, but I would only touch empty air. The spot beside me was already vacant. She was gone. Gone forever. I was in a daze for a long time. Then I remembered, in the last days of her life, she rarely bound me. A week later, I gradually regained my reason. I gave up the UK project. My parents were devastated by Wu Yu's passing. I needed to stay in the country to care for them. Every day I went to the company and then to my parents' house. The villa I had shared with Wu Yu was locked up and handed to a real estate agent to sell. In truth, there was nothing to avoid. The house had been cleaned of all her traces. Not a single thing that belonged to her remained. She had left a silly teddy bear with a note stuck on it, saying it was for Zhao Yi. I think she said the bear looked like me, so it was a gift to Zhao Yi through me. An inexplicable surge of anger washed over me. I picked up the bear and threw it into the garden. One day, my mother suddenly said, "Let's go to where Wu Yu left us." When she mentioned Wu Yu, her eyes went red again. She often dreamed of that stretch of sea. Perhaps Wu Yu wanted to see her. After she spoke, both she and my father looked at me anxiously. I served food onto her plate and said, "I'll have the driver take you both." My mother looked up at me. "Won't you go see Wu Yu? It's just a stretch of sea. Besides, I've always been afraid of the ocean." My father nodded. Shizhen has been afraid of the sea since childhood. The TV was broadcasting footage of the magnificent northern lights in Canada. The luminescent green aurora shifted colors in the night sky. I turned and began clearing away the bowls and chopsticks, placing them in the sink, turning on the tap. My mother had picked up a seashell from the beach and placed it on the bedside. My father said that when they were there, my mother called Wu Yu's name, and the shell was washed by a wave to land at my mother's feet, as if Wu Yu had given it to her. Beyond this, life went on as usual. During a meeting, Zhao Yi coughed once. I looked up at her and gestured for her to step outside. Zhao Yi froze. The others in the meeting looked at me blankly. She quickly said sorry, covered her mouth, and rushed out of the conference room. I looked away and signaled the staff to continue the presentation. Zhao Yi was hiding in the break room crying. I walked past, poured a cup of coffee, and handed it to her. "Mind your emotions at work." She accepted it, somewhat flustered. "Thank you." I took my coffee and was about to leave when I suddenly heard her say, "I'm not crying about what happened in the conference room." Her voice was hoarse. "I just remembered the last conversation I had with Wu Yu. She bought medicine for me and said that for a cough, this kind would help fastest. She must have been in so much pain at the time. Did you know? In the car accident, the moment she watched you pull me out of the car, her expression was very sad. That kind of sadness only a woman could understand. I think she misunderstood. She always believed that when the accident happened, the first person you wanted to save was me." I went still. At the time, Wu Yu's legs were pinned under the crumpled front of the car. Her face was white as paper. From behind, Zhao Yi was in pain and moaning. I got out of the car and pulled her out first. She was frightened and unconsciously grabbed my shirt. I calmed her down with a few words and she came back to herself and let go. I asked someone nearby to call the police and an ambulance, then went to check on Wu Yu. She was stuck stiff. I tried pressing the seat adjustment button to slide it back and make room for her to pull her legs out, but the button had jammed. So I had no choice but to help her treat the wounds from the shattered glass and wait for the rescue team. She had been such a coward about pain in the past, yet that time she didn't say a word. She just kept looking at my arm and saying she was fine, really fine. But later, when she got to the hospital and saw La Chi, her eyes went red and she said she was in pain. At that moment, I understood. In her eyes, I was probably less trustworthy than La Chi. Zhao Yi spoke up again. But I know you pulled me out first because you wanted to press the seat down to make space for her to get out, right? I didn't answer. That evening, I saw an algorithm recommendation on my phone about how much pain it causes to jump into the sea to end one's life. In the comments, people shared their own experiences. Partway through, they would regret it and struggle, but there would be no turning back. Very desperate, the feeling of wanting to breathe but having seawater flooding your lungs. The pain numbs everything. I didn't read to the end. From that day on, I began losing sleep. In those sleepless hours, I would go cook, clean, iron all the clothes and pile them neatly. My mother woke early and saw a table full of food. She tried a piece and her eyes went red. It tastes like what you used to cook. I picked up a piece of braised pork and put it in my mouth. The familiar taste melted on my tongue. A wave of grief rose in my chest. I'd never once cooked before. How was it that I could cook something that tasted like hers? I suddenly realized everything I was doing was everything Wu Yu used to do, and exactly what she did when she couldn't sleep. A few days later, the agent told me someone wanted to buy the house and asked when I could sign the contract. I returned to the villa. Without her belongings, the rooms felt noticeably empty. The exuberant and naive painting on the wall was gone. The doll she used as a pillow on the sofa was gone. The plant she had grown on the balcony was gone. So were the wedding photos we'd taken on that trip together. Only the cold household appliances remained. I stood rooted to the spot, suddenly desperate to find any trace that she had once lived here. But there was nothing, not a single thing. I refused to accept it and searched every corner, but found nothing anywhere. Where was that bear? I rushed out to the corner of the garden. It was gone. Perhaps the cleaners had thought it was trash and taken it. The last thing she left me, and I had thrown it away. I went back inside, took out the clothes she had bought me, and spread them on the bed, then lay down on top of them. I had no intention of sleeping, but drifted off without realizing it. Beside my ear, I seemed to sense a breath, soft and gentle, like a kitten, intermittent. A feeling I had never had before. The door opened. Footsteps. I jolted awake and strode out of the room, down the stairs. When I saw who was there, my heart seemed to stop. It was the real estate agent, with the potential buyer behind him. Seeing me, he was a little startled, then smiled. "Mr. Liu, you're here too. Great, let me introduce you." I half closed my eyes and breathed in deeply. "I'm sorry. The house is no longer for sale." I went to find La Chi and asked him where Wu Yu had lived in her last days. He studied me for a long moment, then smiled. "I already bought that apartment. No need to think about it." I grabbed his hand, stood up, and stepped toward him. "I know you want to find her belongings, to know how she lived in her final days. You won't have that chance. I was silent for a moment, then looked up at him. Honestly, I'm very envious of you. Envious that you knew her better than I did. Envious that when she was hurt, the first person she thought of was you, not me. Clearly, before you appeared, she relied only on me. Lachi smiled slowly. Lu Shizhen. That's because you didn't deserve her. I went back to the villa. But from that day on, I could no longer sense her breath. I began to remember so many things. My mother didn't like Zhao Yi and was afraid of us being together, so she'd vigorously tried to match me with Wu Yu. One day I came home a little drunk with some friends. She suddenly burst into my room like a rain-drenched rabbit, eyes red, clearly not understanding a thing, but still daring to come unbutton my shirt. At that point I thought, my parents want me to be with her, she's doing as they wish. That night she was probably very frightened. She kept trembling, and then kept crying. Later when I proposed, her expression was very complicated, surprised, hesitant, doubtful. I just couldn't see any joy. So I assumed she didn't want to marry me. That was why I said the words that now, every time I think of them, fill me with remorse. I never expected them to become a kind of prophecy. The next day I went into the study to tidy some important documents, and saw the sketchpad gathering dust in the corner of the bookshelf. I flipped it open. Before Wu Yu arrived, my childhood had been very lonely. Most of the time I spent alone drawing. After she came, I drew, and also wrote, a diary about things related to her. I closed the sketchpad and was about to set it down, then suddenly caught a glimpse of the back side of the last page. New pen strokes. I'm sorry. It was Wu Yu's handwriting. Her hands trembled. Had she seen it? Was it because she'd read this diary that she ended her life? From childhood, I was taught to be an upstanding person, so even though I clearly felt that a foster child had stolen my parents' love and attention, and clearly didn't want her there, I still played the role of a model older brother, caring for and protecting her. My parents wouldn't let me be angry, wouldn't let me be selfish. When I was little, once I ruined a toy and my parents looked at me with such disappointment. Later I met Zhao Yi, and found what we had in common. Her parents favored sons over daughters, and her younger brother got leukemia. Her family had no money for treatment, so she voluntarily let a married man keep her, to ask him for money to give to her mother for her brother's treatment. Once she was on the phone with her family when I overheard it. When she hung up, her face was full of disgust. She said quietly, "Sometimes dying seems better." She turned and saw me, stunned, not knowing how to explain. Later her brother truly did pass away, and she was freed. She also broke up with that man. But rumors spread at school. Photos of her and the older man entering a bar circulated everywhere. She explained he was her uncle. No one believed her. She carried the reputation of a bad girl. Whenever she got close to any male, rumors flew. This time I was the male lead in those rumors. When my mother angrily chastised me, I suddenly felt exhausted. Deeply, deeply exhausted. Then she said she wanted me to be with Wu Yu. I laughed and told her if that's what she wanted, she could marry her herself. My mother slapped me. Wu Yu was standing next to me, wanting to say something but not daring. Your parents are so far away. How would they know about you and Zhao Yi? I looked at her coldly. You mean you pressured them into this? Wu Yu panicked and explained, it wasn't her, it was a professor at school who knew my mother and had told her. But I didn't apologize. At the time, I really couldn't stand the sight of her. I didn't know when, but beside her there appeared a male student, Lachi, a medical student. I'd never seen her have affection for any other person like that. Every noon she'd go with him to the canteen together, happily carrying a big bag of snacks to see him. She even asked me what razor brand men typically use, then put the razor in a bag with fruit and brought it to Lachi. Standing across from him and stroking her own chin, telling him to try the razor, at that moment, a surge of anger hit me that I myself hadn't expected. Perhaps in all those days when I refused to accept her, all the things I'd done to care for her against my wishes, they had long since, bit by bit, been erased by her. From the moment her kitten died and she clung to me, sobbing, I realized I didn't actually dislike her that much. She was the only outlet in the house where I could let out a little frustration. But she didn't know. She didn't know how childishly stubborn a boy could be. She didn't know the extent to which words could contradict the heart. Until her death, she always believed I hated her. Until her death, she always believed the person I loved was Zhao Yi. When she wrote those 3 words, what kind of feeling was it? All the hidden sorrow, all the carefully avoided truths, all the hurt and betrayal I had caused her, all the pain of the illness she had borne alone, all the fear when death was near, it all came crashing down onto my body. I knelt on the ground, holding that sketch pad, curled up like a child, crying in pain. I finally went to that stretch of sea. I'd always been afraid to go. I feared I would see the image of her when she died. I stood on the shore. The salty sea wind struck my face in waves. Each wave of green water that crashed and rolled made me dizzy with nausea. Since I was nearly swept away by a wave at 6 years old, I had been afraid of the sea. And Wu Yu had died in the sea. The waves washed over my feet, as if inviting me to go deeper. 1 step, 2 steps. The last thing she had seen before she died was the fireworks in that post of mine. I only thought the fireworks looked like the northern lights she wanted to see, but I hadn't thought about Zhao Yi having liked it. So in Wu Yu's mind, she must have seen it as the romance between Zhao Yi and me. The sea surface drew closer and closer. Suddenly a phone ringtone jolted me back. When I came to my senses, the sea was already up to my waist. I pulled out my phone. It was my mother. I pressed accept. To keep her from hearing the sound of the wind and waves, I covered the speaker with my hand. "What is it?" My mother's voice was heavy with worry. While I was sleeping, the seashells suddenly fell off the nightstand and woke me up. "I suddenly wanted to call you. When are you coming home tonight? What do you want for dinner?" The seashell, I froze. Right, she and the person my mother loved most needed me to take care of them. "I'm coming home now." A few days later, I received a phone call. The voice on the other end hesitated. "It's me. There's something I need to tell you. Once at a bar, we think we saw your wife. She was very thin. We didn't dare go over to check. A few of us had been drinking and we mentioned you, and repeated the things you had said when you were drunk with someone in the UK, that you and her were exhausted, both sick of it." She heard and seemed very sad and left very quickly. After that, when we heard about her passing, it weighed on us. After going back and forth, I decided to tell you what happened that day. I hung up and closed my eyes. So this was why she had chosen to leave. She never knew that the trip back to the country was to propose to her. I truly was exhausted of standing behind the two of them with jealousy, exhausted of the surface-level facade between us, exhausted of being bound to each other. I wanted to ask her, were you willing to marry me? Willing to go to the UK with me and have a wedding? But she packed up all her things and left, and suggested we break up. I always felt she liked Lucci. The friendship between her and Lucci had sustained for 10 years. If they hadn't been involved with me, if it hadn't been for my parents' pressure, they would probably have long since been together. So the moment she suggested breaking up, I naturally assumed she was leaving because she wanted to be with Lucci. Only now, at this moment, did I understand how much disappointment she had accumulated toward me. The time Zhao Yi had a cold and I draped my coat over her, it wasn't that I couldn't see the shadow in Wu Yu's eyes. I had deliberately ignored it. Because the evening before, at the sports court, I'd seen her and Lucci together. Lucci had gone into play and she cheered excitedly. In that moment I was so jealous. My arm, damaged by nerve injury, could no longer play ball. Yet she had run off to watch someone else play. When she leaned weakly on my arm, I even mocked her for it. I know now, from the time she used the suicide threat to trick me, she never dared bring up her health again as an excuse. Even when she was truly sick, she didn't dare tell me. While I was attending to Zhao Yi, she slipped away alone to endure the agony of her illness. Lucci was right. I truly didn't deserve her. Even dying by her side, I had no right to that. Perhaps she truly hated me. When she left her will, she mentioned everyone. But not a single word about me, END. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.